Before everything, there were the four gods of Jyura, the rest god, the remembrance god, the life god, and the death god. All of the gods were lonely, and so they created Jyura, a planet with one continent, Jyura. Each god created their separate species. The life god created the human populace, the remembrance god created the goblins, the death god created the dragons, and the rest god created the elven. Each species also create a shrine dedicated to their god. However, different species also came at an alarming and terrifying consequence: war. War was always inevitable, as the lands were ravaged, plains were destroyed, crops trampled, and the skies dark. So many people from each species died from the war. They called it the Great War, or the War to End All Wars. Soon after the end of the Great War, many of the species collected their fallen and honored them. Then created the Jyuran Treaty among the four high-ranking leaders to represent their race as one, as they agreed to a pact to never attack each other ever again. And if one race does send one of their people to go into their territory, that the people of the territory has full right to annihilate them. However, they also did create a demilitarized zone to minimize conflict among guardsmen. A millennia soon passed where monsters and humans coexist. After the Great War of Jyura, the continent of Jyura was split into four territories of species fighting for dominance and power: the elven, goblin, dragons, and finally, the human race. Relations aren't very good along the species ever since the Great War, where over 50% of each species got wiped out. The lands of Jyura still stained even after millennia since the Great War. Conflicts spark amongst the species. The elven race, a race honed for their magic and isolationist morals; the goblin race, known for their deep hatred among other species; the dragons, known for their hot fiery breath which can melt steel in a second; and humans, one of the most hated races out of all of the races is. Unlike the elven, goblin, and dragons, the humans were more divided and segregated ever since the Great War ended. Kingdoms risen in the human territory named after sins: pride, lust, wrath, envy, sloth, gluttony, and greed. However, after a millennia, only four kingdoms remained: pride, lust, wrath, envy, sloth, gluttony, and greed's kingdom were all wiped out by one kingdom: pride. Pride was the most powerful kingdoms in the human populace, having high-skilled humans with expert knowledge in magic and in the art of the sword, encompassing almost half of the entire territory of the human race. Pride was the most feared kingdom out of the four remaining kingdoms, lust being the least powerful and least respected. They were known for always causing trouble with their natural beauty and causing conflict among married folks. Although, they've tried to keep good relations with the other kingdoms, especially Pride, to not be wiped off the map. As the newborn cried out, his parents looked down at him with overwhelmed adoration. His father brushed a strand of hair from the baby's forehead, smiling softly.
And that's how Jyura came to be, my little warrior.
His mother gently rubbed her finger on the newborn's cheek, staring down with loving eyes.
He love. I think he's going to surpass all our kingdom's stereotypes, don't you think?
His father paused before adding.
Although, he's not as cute as his mother.
His mother laughed gently before cradling the little baby boy in her arms, staring down, with such warmth and kindness in her eyes.
Robert, you have such ways of making a woman fluster.
Years have passed, and the prophecy of his strength became true, yet the cruelty of the world proved truer. Despite the sneers and the bullying, he forged himself into a warrior and found a woman who saw the men beneath the stigma. But happiness is fragile on Jyura. Now, inside the cold, towering obsidian walls of the Pride Kingdom, that happiness was being shattered. Framed. Accused. Condemned. The strength of the Pride Guards was supernatural. Their muscles were like iron, bolstered by magic that made the protagonist's lust-based heritage feel like striking a mountain with a feather. He was pinned to the cold stone floor, his face pressed against the grit. He thrashed violently, the veins in his neck bulging as he tried to summon every ounce of magic he had honed over the years.
Get off me!
He screamed, his voice raw and tearing at his throat. He kicked out, his boots scraping uselessly against the floor as 3 guards held his legs and 2 crushed his arms.
She did nothing! Take me, it was lies! Let her go! Don't you touch her! I'll kill you! I'll kill all of you if you touch her!
The King of Pride sat upon a throne of jagged steel, looking down at the struggling men with a look of utter boredom. He stood up slowly, his heavy cape dragging behind him, and walked toward the protagonist's wife, who was trembling in the grip of the royal executioner. The king grabbed her by the jaw, forcing her to look at him, then at her husband.
Look at him.
The king sneered, his voice booming through the hall.
Pathetic. A dog from the lust slums thinks he can walk among gods. You think you are worthy of this.
He traced a finger down her cheek, his eyes filled with arrogant malice.
You lust, filth, are all the same. Weak, relying on tricks. But here, in the kingdom of pride, only power dictates ownership, and you have none.
As the king finished his speech, he let out his hand. As a sword materialized in his grip, with a sadistic grin, he walked towards her. He could only watch in horror as the king proceeded to start hurting his wife, making small cuts before slowly ripping off her clothes. His wife instinctively hid her body. The king of pride grinned before slashing her hand with the sword.
No! No! Stop it!
He sobbed, his thrashing growing weaker as the physical and emotional trauma shattered his spirit. The guards holding him down chuckled, a synchronized, hollow sound that echoed off the walls. They wrenched his arms behind his back, lifting him up only to drag him toward the heavy iron gates. Look at him cry, one guard sneered, kicking the protagonist in the ribs. Go back to the gutter, whoreson. She's the king's toy now. She'll serve the elite, the way your kind was meant to.
Yeah.
Another guard laughed, shoving the protagonist toward the edge of the ravine that marked the border of the Whispering Woods. Don't wait up for her. By the time the king is done with her, she won't remember your name. If the bears don't eat you, the cold will. With a final, bone-crushing kick, they hurled him into the darkness of the woods. The massive iron gates of the Pride Kingdom slammed shut with a finality that shook the earth. The silence that followed was deafening. He lay in the mud, broken. His body was a map of bruises, but his heart was a cavern of void. He stared at the closed gates. The image of her terrified face burned into his retinas. Slowly, his trembling hand clawed into the dirt. A low chuckle escaped his bleeding lips. It wasn't a sound of joy. It was the sound of a mind snapping. He forced himself to his knees, his eyes glowing with a sinister, newfound energy that felt nothing like the weak magic of lust. The laughter echoed through the dark trees, scaring away the birds.
I'm going to make them pay.
He whispered, clutching the dirt until his knuckles turned white.
Every single one of them, they think they know pride? I will show them.
I will show them hell.